Okay, Shalom. Today is the 4th of December, 2025, and we are in our Denver Kehila class, learning Midrash and Halacha, combination of both, and although not related, uh, but one is about the Parsha and one is about Chanukah, so Inyanei Diyoma, nevertheless. So let's start with the Midrash, and let me share the screen. And I see Brian just joined us. Nice to have you, Brian.
Hi.
And let's share the screen here. Why can't I? Hi, Serena. Uh, this is strange.
Sorry we're late.
That's okay. I am the host, and it's not letting me share the screen. Oh, here we go. This is so odd. Okay, I don't know.
Rabbi Gerson, are you on a treadmill or are you shuckling?
I'm on the treadmill.
Yeah,
So, R Rabbi, it says
I got
sharing
it.
is not turned on.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay,
Okay,
that's because
thank
you could
you.
always send it to me and I would share it.
Oh, thank you. Okay, here we go. So, this is the I want to do this first. Okay, do you see the Midrash text? Midrash Rabbah
Yes.
Yes.
76:9?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the background of this, we are now coming up to the meeting between Yaakov and Esav after Yaakov has been away for 20 years. He ran away when his mother said, "You stole the bracha. Your brother wants to kill you. It's best that you take off and go somewhere else for a little while." And he does, and now but he no longer feels welcomed at Lavan's house, and it's time for him to take off. And he's about to meet up with Esav, and before that meeting, the Torah records the following: Vayakam b'layla hahu. This is the night before the meeting. Vayikach et shtei nashav, v'et shtei shivchotav. He takes his two wives and his two maidservants. Let me open up the actual whole pasuk um, for us to see. It's 32:23 here. So here's the whole pasuk. He takes his two wives and his two maidservants, V'et echad asar yiladav, and his 11 children or sons, Vayavor et mavar Yabok, and he crossed the ford of Yabok. So right away here, the commentaries are troubled with this pasuk. Anyone know why?
Meeting invitation I gave you. So the today's meeting we just had with.
Anyone know why? Okay, the reason is because there are 12 children at this point. There are 11 sons. Binyamin has not been born yet, and there's Dina.
Right.
And the Torah only records that he took 11 children with him.
Mm.
So Rashi quotes the Midrash, which we're going to see in a moment. But that is the pasuk that our Midrash is dealing with. So now let's jump to the Midrash, and the Midrash says, "V'Dina heichanhi." Where was Dina? Right? Where was Dina? What's not clear in this Midrash is why does the Midrash assume Dina is the one missing? Right, because the pasuk says 11 children, so maybe one of the sons was missing. So
I
I
mean,
saw,
unless you translate Yeladav as sons.
yeah, I'm not sure if that's a great translation,
Okay.
and it also could be that it seems like Yiladav is a unit, so maybe it means the unit of boys,
Mm.
leaving out Dina, and so the Midrash says V'Dina heichan hi, where was Dina? And then surprisingly, right? Um, Now, it could be, by the way, that Dina wasn't there because I talked about this Midrash with someone today, and they suggested, well, maybe Dina wasn't there because uh, it talks about Yaakov's household, and Dina is eventually going to be married, and she'll become part of her husband's household. She's not going to be part of Yaakov's household forever, as opposed to the sons who are going to be the next generation, the next link in the chain of Yaakov's household. So they're included, and so that's why maybe Dina is not included, which is an interesting and I think plausible suggestion, but not the one the Midrash goes with. The Midrash goes with a much more provocative suggestion that says Natna b'teva v'na'al b'faneha, that Yaakov put Dina in a box and locked her in it. Not only they put her in the box, they locked her in the box. Okay, and the Midrash explains why. The Midrash says, Amar harasha hazeh eino ramahi, shelo yitle einav v'yireh ota v'yikach ota mimeni. This wicked one, Esav, has a covetous eye. I do this so he will not direct his eyes, see her, and take her from me. So it seems that Yaakov is afraid that Esav is going to want to marry Dina. He's going to take her as his own. And Yaakov doesn't want to do that. And so he locks her away. Again, there's no reason to assume, in fact, there's every reason to assume that Esav has no idea about the size of Yaakov's family. They've been cut off for 20 years. Yaakov left single, childless. Now he has 12 children, 4 wives, but Esav knows none of this. So Yaakov thinks he can get away with it. I'll just hide her in the box. We'll have our meeting, and I have no intention of going with him. As we see at the end of the story, Esav invites Yaakov to go with him, and Yaakov says, well, we have young children. We can't really do it. Why don't you go ahead, and we'll walk from behind, and we'll catch up with you. But we know that Yaakov doesn't do that. He goes in a completely different direction. So Yaakov has no intention in sticking around, and he thinks he can get away with this and save Dina from Esav's clutches, and that's the plan. Okay, now it's reasonable, right? People do all sorts of things to save their children from potential danger, and so Yaakov does this. However, according to the Midrash, the rabbis in the Midrash, they say God was unhappy with this move. Okay? And they put it in the following context. Rabbi Huna b'shem Rabbi Abba HaKohen Bar Dila Amar. Rabbi Huna said in the name of Rabbi Abba HaKohen Bar Dila, Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God said, quotes a pasuk in Eov, which is going to become important in a moment. Lamas meira'ehu chased. Quotes a pasuk. For the sake of one who deprives his neighbor of kindness, manata meira'acha chesed, manata chastecha min achuch. You withheld kindness from your neighbor, you withheld kindness from your brother. So I want to stop here and ask your thoughts on this. What chesed did Yaakov withhold from Esav? Like, why is God upset about this? As I noted, maybe you agree, maybe not. It seems like a reasonable thing for Yaakov to do. Esav is an unsavory character. He's vowed to kill Yaakov. Who knows what he'll do with Dina? So why do you think God's upset here?
I got 2 issues.
Okay.
Issue number 1 is in 5 minutes later in this parsha, this exact thing is going to happen to Dina with Shlem.
Yes. Okay.
So
Cool.
that's number 1.
Yes, we'll
And
get
number
there.
2 is, isn't there Midrash saying that the reason that Leah and Rachel made sure that Leah married Yaakov also is because originally she was betrothed to Esav?
I'm I'm not 100% familiar with that,
I
but
think
let's say
there's
yes.
some Midrash, I think, that talks about like her weak eyes, and
Right?
part of it was crying because she was
Oh,
supposed to
yes,
marry,
correct. Right?
right?
Okay,
That she's
right.
so there's two issues, which is number one, if that's the case, why, like if so on the one hand, so that would prove that Yaakov was worried about Esav in two ways, right? So he married Leah, although I mean that wasn't really his doing, right? Per last week. But he married Leah so that Esav didn't marry her, and he protected Dina. But then again, like why, if he's placing her in the box so that she doesn't get attacked by Esav, why does he stop when Shechem is around the corner?
Well, yeah, well, I think the assumption here is this would be a direct introduction between Dina and Esav, while the Shem thing was essentially an accident. Like Yaakov didn't bring her to meet Shem. They happened to be in the neighborhood, and then, as the Torah records, she went out and Shem
Right.
attacked her. So, yeah,
Maybe, but if he's so worried about her, it just seems weird to me that here but not there.
okay, interesting points. Any other? So, okay, but again, let's get back to the question: why is God upset with Yaakov? Serena, you have to unmute if you want to say something. Okay, go ahead.
Um, when Yaakov went to Haran in the first place, his mother said to his father, I can't bear it if he marries a Canaanite woman. We have to send him to find a wife. That was, in theory, the reason why he was going. In practice, he was running away from his brother. But it seems like Yaakov would have been worried for Dina, well, for everybody, for all his children. Could he not have married them off or betrothed them, or from Haran imported with him some wives for them? And my question, in fact, is, did he? Because he would have had all those servants and everybody. A shepherd.
Well, he has the children when he's with Lavan, and they're all young, and then he leaves Lavan.
So could he? I mean, he left Lavan with a lot of servants. So is it possible that he brought with wives for all his children, or did his children all marry Canaanite? Because I guess
Unclear,
it's the same
but
question for Dina.
I'm not sure. But so I'm trying to get down to the bottom of why God would be angry with Yaakov for withholding Dina from Esav.
From Esav.
Yeah, that's what's going on here. He's about to meet Esav, and he hides Dina in a box.
Well, maybe the issue is that he's mad that God is mad because he's withholding her, right? If that midrash about Leah crying because she's supposed to be married to Esav is wrong, then maybe the plan all along was for Dina to marry Esav, and that would cement the reconciliation.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Good. Okay. Let's see what the Midrash does here. Not so different than what you're saying, Sue. So God says, "Look, you've withheld a kindness from your brother," and what? And then then this is very interesting. The end of the Midrash is Dinasbat le'Eov lav girte bitmia. Bitmia means question mark. The Midrash here is contending that Dina married Eov. So we have to just stop for a second and note that there's a big debate in Chazal as to when Eov lived. But there is a view, and here's the Midrash down here in Midrash Rabbah, that Eov lived in the time of Yaakov. So just keep that in mind, right? So according to this Midrash that we're studying, they accept the idea that Eov lived in the time of Yaakov. And not only did he live in the time of Yaakov, Dina married him, and she, I think what the Midrash is saying here is she had a positive influence on Eov to the point that he converted. Okay? So now let's put all these pieces together and try to answer our question. Why is God upset that Yaakov withheld Dina from Esav? After all, God says to Yaakov, this is again, we're sort of doing a time warp here, right? Dina marries Eov and manages to convince him to convert. And so the commentaries on this Midrash say, maybe Dina would have had a positive effect on Esav. And by withholding Dina from Esav, you are withholding the possibility that Esav could do tshuva or, develop a better character. But your desire to protect her actually withheld the possibility of Esav's rehabilitation.
If I could ask for clarification, according to this Midrash, when she married Job, didn't he convert? That's put in the mouth of God.
Yes.
I see.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, it says here, Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
So this is still a continuation of that.
Yeah. Lamas mireu chesed. Manata mireu chesed. Manata chastecha min achuch. Dinasaft le'Eov lav girte. When he married Eov, that's correct. It's God saying to Yaakov, why would you do this? There's potential here for Esav. And Dina is such a powerful personality, as we see from her successful conversion of Eov. I don't know, Yaakov, seems like the wrong move. So I thought this was such an interesting Midrash, and to me, raised a question. To me, it signals that maybe the rabbis are raising a question, which is, what is a reasonable spiritual risk to take for the good of someone else's soul? Right? Yaakov is concerned for maybe Dina's safety, maybe for her spiritual safety, and so he hides her. And God is saying, well, maybe the risk is worth it. We don't know what would have happened, but she has a good track record with Eov. Maybe she would have been successful with Esav. And you notice the Midrash doesn't say that God says, I promise you it would be okay. Like, the rabbis don't go that far. They're willing to say, actually, on some level, they're going even further. They're willing to, in my understanding of this Midrash, is that the rabbis are saying some spiritual risks are worth it, even though you can't get any guarantee that it's actually going to work. Maybe Dina would have been negatively influenced by Esav. Who knows? But when someone else's spiritual character is on the line, you have to be willing to take a risk. That's how I see sort of God's chastisement here of Yaakov. Yeah, Serena, please.
I think if you take a frum girl in Israel today and she marries a Chiloni Jew, is that a reasonable spiritual risk? How about if she marries a Hamas terrorist? How about if she marries a Russian Jew who's not halachically Jewish? It seems to
Look,
me.
I think that's the question the Midrash is raising. The Hamas terrorist thing, I'll leave aside.
No, well, I'm saying that Esav is the terrorist. He said, "I'm going to kill."
See, that's interesting. I'm not sure about that because certainly if you look at the text of the Torah, Esav's not all that bad. He got ripped off by Yaakov. He's very angry, understandably so. The rabbis though through the Midrashim, do paint Esav as a particularly unsavory character. But at this point, Esav hasn't done anything wrong. In fact, if you read the rest of the story, when he does meet Yaakov, he's a perfect gentleman. He's all happy to meet his nieces, well, not his niece, but his nephews. She's still in a box. He's happy to meet the nephews. He's overjoyed. He wants Yaakov to join him. Yaakov doesn't want to join him. If you really, really want to read the text carefully, Yaakov is the sinister one. Yaakov's the one who stole the bracha. Right? Yaakov's the one who deceived Esav. Esav hasn't done anything wrong. So, on the other hand, to the point of the question, I think that's the issue the Midrash is raising. Like, what's a worthwhile risk? Now, here we're not talking about a illicit marriage, like, right, the example of marrying a Russian or whatever, an immigrant who's not Jewish. That's a separate issue. That's not a question of a spiritual risk. That's a question of marrying someone against halacha. That's different. But at this point of time in history, Dina marrying Esav was perfectly legitimate. So I think that's it raises this question. And as soon as I studied this, I thought about the Chabad model, right? The Chabad model of sending shlichim literally anywhere in the world where there's no Jewish infrastructure. There will be no Jewish peers for the children that these shlichim have. They're going to be an online school until they're probably old enough to go to school, somewhere else. There's very little spiritual sustenance for the couple themselves. They're usually the only game in town. But nevertheless, this is the Rebbe's mandate. And it's a risk. It's definitely a risk. I was thinking about this and I remembered, and I'll find this text, that there is a. Do you see this new text here that says Yud Tet Kislev on top?
No.
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 Okay. Let me.
I think you have to refresh your screen.
Let me stop the share and start the share again. Here we go. So this is the text of a speech given by the Rebbe. And he also told this story in his very first mamar, meaning when he accepted, I guess, the nomination of his Hasidim to become the Rebbe, he told this story as well. And this story is understood to be like sort of foreshadowing the idea of shlichut, of the Meshulachim. And we're almost out of our half hour of this, so we'll end with this. He tells this story. It's right up here where it says Lamed Zayin. He tells a story from Rabbeinu Hazaken. That's the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad Chasidut, author of the Tanya and author of the Shulchan Aruch Harav, his version of the Shulchan Aruch. So he tells a story that he was davening on Yom Kippur. I'll just tell you the story outside. He was davening on Yom Kippur. And according to another version of the story, it was on Shabbos. And he stops in the middle of davening, takes off his talis, and goes to the outskirts of the town to help a woman who had just given birth, whose family had abandoned her to go to shul that night. And he helped her with all the things that he was allowed to do according to halacha. And the Rebbe says, I heard this story, but never made a big deal out of it. And I even told this story when I first became the Rebbe. But now I want to make a big deal out of this story, because he says, if you think about it, it's not really a big deal why the Rebbe did it. There's a principle in halacha that if someone has to break Shabbos for someone else, it should be the gadol. It should be the greatest Torah scholar there, so that it's clear that what he's doing is permitted, and that everyone else should do the same too, right? If you see the gadol hador, getting in his car and taking someone to the hospital on Shabbos, that leaves quite an impression for the future in terms of how people should deal with pikuach nefesh and should not hesitate. So it's true that it makes sense that the Rebbe does this, but that the Alter Rebbe did this. But the Lubavitcher Rebbe says there's something else going on here. Like he was in the middle of Shemona Esrei. He was in the middle of his greatest like spiritual attainment. And he just leaves it behind in order to take care of someone else's needs. And in this case, it's not physical, spiritual needs; it's physical needs. And the Rebbe goes on to make a big deal of this story. And in the middle of his dealing with something so lofty, he had it within him to feel and be worried about this woman who's on the edges of the town, that she needs his help. And he uses this and he says that this is what we should be doing. He says there are two ways to serve God. One is through Torah, and one is through taking care of other people. And so when I read this Midrash, this is what I was thinking about, like the Chabad model of going out anywhere where there's a perceived need, spiritual or otherwise, and taking care of the people. And that's what I think the challenge of this Midrash is, that God is challenging Yaakov and teaching Yaakov a lesson that you may have made a mistake. Now, I think the reason also, and this will end, why the Midrash specifically tells us that Dina was successful with Eov is to on the one hand stress that the risk may be acceptable, but you should only take the risk if you feel that you have the potential to be successful. Meaning God's not saying, well, just throw anyone out there into the wilderness and whatever happens, happens. God's not saying that. He's saying a person like Dina has a track record, so she could have been successful with Esav, but God's also not saying, I guarantee success. It's like a middle position between send someone like who you think has the spiritual wherewithal, then it's still a risk, but it's an acceptable risk. And I just found that this Midrash to be quite thought-provoking and uplifting. Okay, last chance for a comment before we move on to Chanukah.
Yeshkala.
Okay.
Chanukah.
All right, let's move on to Chanukah. And we are going to talk about women and lighting Chanukah candles.
I'm just getting some water. I'll be right back.
Okay. Get for all of us, please.
You got it.
All right, here we go. Here's the sugya in the Gemara says as follows: Isha vadai madlika da'amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi nashim chayavot b'ner Chanukah she'af hein hayu ba'oto hanes. So the Gemara says a woman certainly lights Chanukah candles. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi explains women are obligated in the mitzvah of Chanukah candles because they were also part of the miracle. Now, why does the Gemara have to say this? Because the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah is a mitzvat aseh shazman grama. It's a positive, time-bound commandment. And there's a general rule in halacha that women are exempt from time-bound positive commandments. For example, sitting in the sukkah, right? Many women do, but they're not obligated because it's a time-bound positive commandment. Similarly, so is Chanukah. But nevertheless, the Gemara says this is an exception to the rule. Why? Af hein hayu b'oto hanes. They were also involved or part of the miracle. So what does that mean? There are two views in the commentaries as to what it means, af hein hayu b'oto hanes, that the women were also part of the miracle. One view is as follows. Sha'af hein hayu b'oto hanes. This is the Tosafot in Masechet Megillah. Perush Rashbam. Rashbam explained, Shikar hanes haya al yadan, that the miracle actually came about because of the efforts of women. B'Chanukah idei Yehudit, because of Yehudit. Now, then the Tosfot raises the question: this language af hein seems to be secondary. They were also part of it, but the explanation of the Rashbam is that they were the essential cause of the miracle. Mashma shein tefelot af hein sounds like they were ancillary. Ulu perusho hayalo lomar shehein. According to the Rashbam, he should have said shehein hayu boto anes instead of the af again makes them sound secondary. Lakaf nireli she'af hein hayu b'safek. So the Tosfot says, I disagree with the Rashbam, and I think it means that they were also subject to danger. So two explanations of what it means, af hein hayu boto anes. One is they were responsible for a particular action, which we'll see what it was, that led to the miracle, and the other is they were in danger. We have to define both of those. So according to the Kolbo, women are obligated, for they were part of the miracle. What happened here? The famous story of Yehudit. There are those who explain that the great miracle occurred by means of a woman, Ushma Yehudit. Her name was Yehudit. Kamoshe Mefurash Ba'agada Bat Haytai Yochanan Kohen Gadol. It was Yochanan, the Kohen Gadol's daughter. V'hayta Yefat Toar Ma'od V'amar HaMelech Yavan Shetishkav Imo V'achilto Tavshil Shel Gevina. She was beautiful, and the Greek king ordered that she come to him to sleep with him, and so she fed him some cheese, which I think made him thirsty, and then she gave him a lot to drink. He got thirsty, so she gave him a lot of wine to drink. He fell down, he got drunk, went to sleep, and she cut his head off. And then she took his head, she brought it to Yerushalayim, and when the army, the Greek army saw that their hero, that their general and king was dead, they lost their wits and they ran away, and that's how the Jews won the war. So af hein hayu boto hanes is not just that they were part of the miracle, but because of Yehudit's bravery and guile, right? She saved the day. That's one view, and the other view is that they were in danger. That there was a rule that before any Jewish girl got married, the Greek general or king had the right to sleep with her, and that's what they were. That's what the Jews were. That's partly why the Jews were revolting, and since they were in that very serious type of danger, once the danger was removed by the victory, af hein hayu boto hanes, they were also saved from that miracle, and therefore they are obligated in lighting candles, even though it's a mitzvah aseh shehazman grama. So these are the two explanations of af hein hayu boto hanes. One is they actively partook in actions that led to the defeat of the enemy, and the other is they were in a particularly terrible situation and a really awful type of danger. And when relief came, they were since the relief was so directed at their precarious position, the rabbis decreed that they would also be obligated in the mitzvah of lighting candles. Af hein hayu boto hanes.
I'll put your hand up.
Okay. Any questions so far? Yes, Serena.
So did you unmute me?
Yeah.
So this is Yehudit. This isn't the women.
This
The
is a
women
woman.
were in danger. So one of your two reasons, they benefited from the miracle. But it wasn't the women who did that great salvation.
It's right. So it seems like what Chazal were saying here is that Yehudit is representative of women. She's the representative, and because of her actions, all women are obligated. But you're right. It was one woman in that case, and in the case of the danger, it was not all women either. It was just the new brides, but plural, more than one. Correct. Yeah. Okay. So now we come to this Gemara Masechet Shabbat about Rabbi Zera. Amar Rabbi Zera, Miresh ki avina beirav. When I was in yeshiva, mishtatfina beprite bahadi ushpiza. So the way yeshivas used to work is there were no dorms, people stayed with local families. And so he said I would participate in my host's lighting by contributing coins to pay for the oil. And now he's a part owner in the mitzvah objects. Bahadi Ushpiz in that house. Batar Dinasivi, he says, once I married a woman, the Nasivi Itita, Amina Hashta, Vadailo Tsarichna, Dekamadliki al Alai Bigav Batai. He said, once I married a woman, I said, now I certainly don't need to pay my host since they light for me in my home. Meaning we have sort of a testimony here that Rabbi Zera is saying that his wife lit for him. Maybe he wasn't home or still in the yeshiva or, I don't know, on the treadmill in the gym, whatever it was, right? But I had to pay into the lighting when I was single and not part of that household. But now it's my household. It's our oil. And my wife lights for me. So this is interesting, right? We have this sort of this testimony that Rabbi Zera's wife lit candles for him. And the Mishnah Berurah here notes this practically. Ukeshe'ena ish babayit, tadlika isha dehave bat chiyuva ubivracha. When the man, what's interesting here is the Mishnah Berurah doesn't quite say what Rabbi Zera said. The Mishnah Berurah says here, when the man is not home, then the woman can light for him because she is obligated, as we saw in the Gemara, and she makes a bracha. I mean, meaning the obligation is the same for men as in for women. Hence, she has to make the bracha as well. But later on, the Mishnah Berurah adds this note: Isha madleket perush be'ad kol beita. She can light on behalf of her entire family. V'afilu ish yachol lasot ota shliach lahotzio, and the husband can make her an agent to discharge his obligation. It sounds like this could also mean even when the husband is home, right? When the husband is home, she could do the lighting or he could do the lighting. The most common Ashkenazi practice, however, is that, well, I think the most common Ashkenazi practice is that if the husband and wife are at home, the husband lights and the woman does not light. And that's based on the principle of ishto kigufo, that they're one and the same. And when the husband lights, it's as if the woman is lighting as well. She is taking on, she fulfills the mitzvah through his lighting. And that custom is based on this comment in the Bir Halacha. The Bir Halacha says, Isha madleket, a woman lights, di'yechola lahotzi afilu bala. She could fulfill her husband's obligation even if he's home. Aval yadua masha amru rabotenu zichronam levracha. However, we know what our rabbis of blessed memory have said. Visha mivarechet libala, that a woman recites Birkat HaMazon for her husband, right? You don't have to say Birkat HaMazon. You could listen to someone else who has the same obligation as you, say Birkat HaMazon, and you could listen and answer Amen to all the brachot and fulfill your obligation of Birkat HaMazon. A woman could do that for her husband too. Aval, Amru Chachamim, Tavo me'ara la'adam she'ishto uvanav mevarchen lo. A curse should come upon a man whose wife and children recite Birkat HaMazon for him. That's very strong language. I want to understand why that is. Like, why would the rabbi say a curse should come upon, I got you, Brian, a curse should come upon a man whose husband and wife recite Birkat HaMazon? We'll try to explain that in a minute, but Brian, your question first.
But why would it be different for a woman to make kiddush?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if it would be.
And avoid teenage children.
I'm not sure if it would be. Good point.
And for her children, if they're teenagers, her boys, her sons.
Right. That's what it says here. A curse could come in whose wife and children. Oh, saying it for the children as well, the adult children, the bar mitzvah children. Yeah.
I'm saying if the mother is lighting Chanukah candles when she's got bar mitzvah age sons with her.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe not in that. Well, yeah, I think that would work too. Although the custom is that certainly when it comes to boys, bar mitzvah age boys light on their own.
So I have a halachic question
Yeah.
that relates to my thought, which is, so we've just established that women are obligated to the mitzvah of Hanukkah candles. Are women obligated in the same way to the mitzvah of Birkat Hamazon, or is that Zman Garama?
No, same.
So women are also obligated to the mitzvah of Birkat Hamazon.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So then, right. So that answers the question of how the connection could be
Right.
Could be made. But my understanding was that this whole a curse comes upon is because it would only be so if he wasn't educated, and he should be educated.
Exactly. Meaning
And that's why it's a shanda.
right. The rabbis are saying basically, this is a shanda. How could this guy, right, not know how to do Birkat Hamazon?
Right. It's not because they shouldn't discharge their obligation.
Correct. It's the shanda factor.
Well,
Meaning you are cursed because you've allowed a situation that you can't do Birkat Hamazon, and therefore you have to rely on your wife or children, especially in a time where most women were not, getting that level of education at all. So shanda on you for being in that position. So I got you 1 second, Rabbi. So the Bir Halacha is saying, similarly, a woman should not light Chanukah candles for her husband, because why would she? Unless he can't say the bracha. And if he can't say the bracha, that's terrible, because he should be able to say the bracha, right? So it's based on this notion of this curse, where the custom developed that if husband and wife are home, the husband lights for the wife and not the other way around. Okay, we have one more piece to do to close the night, but Rabbi Gerson?
Well, I mean, this was for when we were in the rabbit hole about Birkat Hamazon. It could be that, and maybe I'm over-personalizing here, the head of the household became just a little too sated by the meal, and was in a situation where he was not able to pronounce the words. And
Okay,
that's a shanda
that's a
because
shanda. I
he
haven't seen that interpretation of this, but could be.
he went too far. I
Yeah.
don't know if that would be relevant to the Hanukkah candle. So
Right, it may not be. It may be on Purim.
right.
Okay. Rabbi David Orbach, a contemporary scholar, takes this Bir Halacha to task. He says, Nira Dieshel Chalek. He said, no, we should be able to distinguish between Birkat Hamazon and the bracha of Chanukah candles. V'hu al pi masha katuv Rashi b'sukkah lamed chet v'tavo lo me'ira shelo lamad. There it is. Rashi's explicit that Rashi's the curse comes because he did not learn to recite. In this case, it's Hallel or Birkat Hamazon. There's a list of things that the rabbis don't want the women and children doing instead of the husband. Dimistama vadayo dea ba'atzmo levarech bracha kitzara zo. We're not really concerned that the husband doesn't know lahadlik ner shel Chanukah. It's really far-fetched to assume that he doesn't know this short bracha over the Chanukah candles. Ela shamisiba kol shei mitzavel leishto shetalik v'tivarech. But he has another reason why he wants the wife to light. Maybe the wife wants to light. Maybe he wants to spread the wealth. Maybe he wants his little girls to see the wife light, or I don't know, he's afraid of fire. Whatever the reason is, he's come up with a reason why he wants his wife to light. It's not because he doesn't know the bracha. That's far-fetched, he says. When it comes to the bracha of lighting candles, where the wife and husband have exactly the same obligation, yesh lomar she'ein bichlal shum gri'uta bazeh. There is there is no problem at all with the wife lighting. Shemimaneh et ishto shaliach, that he appoints his wife to be shaliach. Umishum kach hishmituhu habach v'hataz v'shar poskim v'lo katfu shlechatchila ein nachon lemanot ishto shaliach. Therefore, all of these poskim, the Bach and the Taz and others, they do not write that even the Chatchila, it's better it's proper not to ask the wife to light. So he does not like this. He does not like this debate that's brought up in the Bir Halacha. Now, also, by the way, could be to what you said, Sue, earlier, that there is a debate when it comes to Birkat Hamazon about whether the woman is obligated Mida Oraita or Mida Rabbanan. So if she's obligated on a lesser level, then she definitely can't fulfill her husband's obligation. But here it seems like the assumption is she's on the same level as the husband, but the reason why, according to Rashi, is that of the curse is because Shelo Lamad, is because the husband did not learn. Okay, now, so you have this David Orbach who disagrees with this Bir Halacha and also notes that major poskim did not indicate a preference that the wife light. I'll just share with you two more things on this from Rav Soloveitchik and then Rav Lichtenstein. So in a sefer called Nefesh Harav, which is a collection of minhagim of Rabbi Soloveitchik, Rav Hershel Schechter, Rabbi Soloveitchik's student, writes, Ayin Reish Chaf Vav Ayin Rama. He says, look at the Rama and the Shulchan Aruch. Shekol Echad Mibnei Habayit Yadlik, that everyone in the household, every member of the household should light. Vayein Sham b'Mishnah Brura Dahainu Levad Me'ishto Shikugufo. When it says everyone should light, the Mishnah Brura says everyone except the wife, because the wife is connected to the husband. The Rabbeinu, however, Rabbi Soloveitchik Amar she'ein lazetam. He does not. He says this makes no sense. V'shemin hanachon she'anashim hanisuot gam kein yadliku la'atzman. Rabbi Soloveitchik said this notion of ishto kegufo is not strong enough. I think, based on, we'll see Rav Lichtenstein in a moment, is not strong enough to go against the simple reading of the Gemara that women are obligated. Right? The Gemara says women are obligated, and then we start to come on to all of these other reasons. Yes, they're obligated, but ishto kegufo, or the curse. And it seems like Rabbi Soloveitchik is saying that all goes against the straightforward reading of the text. And we'll see Rav Lichtenstein, he writes it right here. In the home of Rav Soloveitchik, it was customary for women to light, and so is the custom in my home. As we have seen, the simple understanding of the law is that women are obligated just like men on the level of the extremely zealous, meaning Mahadran min Mahadran, that everyone in the family lights. Women also should light, and the burden of proof falls upon those who think otherwise. So I think that's the same thing Rav Lichtenstein saying. You have a straightforward Gemara that we saw at the beginning here, that women are obligated, she'af hein hayu boto anes, because they were involved in the miracle as well. And then we sort of creep into trying to find reasons why maybe the women are not obligated to light. And Rav Soloveitchik based on Rav Lichtenstein's interpretation, he's saying, no, that's a bridge too far. And the bottom line is women are obligated. Now, they don't have to. They can rely on these other notions. Doesn't seem like Rav Schechter or Rav Lichtenstein or Rav Soloveitchik are saying otherwise. But Rav Lichtenstein's practice in his home and Rav Soloveitchik's practice is that the women lit because they presumably felt that the women should light with their own bracha separate from their husband. I also saw an interesting suggestion that because there's something nice about the husband and wife fulfilling the mitzvah together on one Chanukah. So I saw a suggestion that on night one the wife lights, on night two the husband lights, on night three and they alternate back and forth, fulfilling each other's mitzvah, while each of them have 4 chances to light the Chanukah on their own, and so it's sort of having your cake and eating it too, right? In the sense that because Ishto Kagufo is a nice idea, right? That the husband and wife are really so joined that they can fulfill mitzvot for each other. But on the other hand, women want to light, so maybe that's a way to do it as well. I've heard that I know a few people who do it that way. But nevertheless, it's important to note that even though in a lot of sources it seems to indicate that women should not light if their husband lights, certainly was the position of Rav Soloveitchik and Rav Lichtenstein that the opposite is true, that actually women should light in addition to the husband lighting with a bracha. Okay, a few minutes for comments or questions. Okay, Serena. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, Serena, go ahead.
Is there a question in modern times in America, affluence versus poverty? So was there a question that there would only be one menorah in a family because it's expensive, but nowadays we can all afford Hanukkah candles, sort of all?
It's certainly reasonable to suggest that for some people that may have been the issue. Yeah. Now that's why it specifically says we're talking about the Mahadrin min HaMahadrin version of the mitzvah, which is when everyone lights in the family. So assuming the family can afford that. But you're right, if the family cannot afford that, then you just choose one representative. But it seems that representative could be the wife as well, even in that case. Sorry, you're muted.
Right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm saying when
Yeah.
we say Hidur Mitzvah, then that's the same word as Mahadrin.
Yes, exactly. And the Gemara talks about 3 different ways to fulfill this mitzvah, which is no matter how many people are in the household, 1 candle each night. That's the basic way to fulfill the mitzvah. Second way to fulfill the mitzvah, according to the Gemara, is 1 Chanukah with the number of candles corresponding to the number of nights. And then there's our understanding of the next way to do this mitzvah is that everyone in the household lights a Chanukah with the number of candles corresponding to the night. That's the Hidur of the Hidur, Mahadrin min HaMahadrin.
I'm just worried about the fire hazard.
Right, that's true. And so I always tell people not to leave the house with candles burning. And what we're going to do on Friday night when there's a TDK dinner at Eidos is we're going to light 1 tea light in the sink. When we go out for dinner on Friday night, we do not light Shabbos candles. We make the bracha over the electric light. We don't like to. We have no pets in the house, but we still don't want to leave a candle burning unsupervised. For Chanukah, it's harder to get around that. So we light 1 tea light, which is pretty safe. It's not going to tip over because it's low and a large base, and it's in the sink, which is metal. So if some fluky things happens, it'll just burn out in the sink. But you're right. You have to be careful about a fire hazard. Totally.
Rabbi, can you explain that 1 candle thing? I've never heard of that before.
That's the basic fundamental way to fulfill the mitzvah. Let's say you find yourself, I don't know, stranded somewhere and all you have is 1 candle. It's the 5th night of Hanukkah. You still light that 1 candle and make the bracha, and you fulfilled the mitzvah 100%. It's not the Hidur mitzvah. It's not the most beautiful way to fulfill the mitzvah, but it's like getting a nice etrog, but not getting the most beautiful etrog. You fulfill the mitzvah with a kosher etrog, but it doesn't have to be the most beautiful one.
So for people who don't have enough candles, they've got a Chanukah that puts the 1 candle in the slot for the 5th night.
Um,
And then they'd still need another one for the shamash.
well, you don't really, nowadays you don't need a shamash so much because we have electric lights, right? Which we have the shamash so as we don't use the Hanukkah candles for personal use. So bottom line is, if you only have one candle on any night of Hanukkah, you light one candle with a bracha, and you fulfill the mitzvah to the point that, let's say later in the night, you get 4 more candles. You could light them, but you should not make a bracha on them because you've already fulfilled the mitzvah. And if you say the bracha, you're saying a bracha unnecessarily, right? Because you only say the bracha when you fulfill the mitzvah. Yeah, Rabbi?
I'm curious as to whether this boils down to the question of whether the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah is the mitzvah of the household, or is it the mitzvah of the individual?
Right. So we generally say that the mitzvah of lighting Hanukkah candles is ner ish uveto. It's the household. That's the basic mitzvah, but then we take it up a notch, and everyone does it on their own. But the basic mitzvah is one candle for the household.
Right. Which is why you're bothering to light a candle before you leave for Eidos, because the household will have fulfilled that obligation.
Right, exactly. That will not be that will not be mahadrin for Hanukkah, but it'll be mahadrin for safety.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Sue.
So riffing off of Serena, I was thinking when Serena was talking about poverty, that the sort of that midpoint, right, between the Gemara and the modern commentators, that the opinions about women not lighting seem sociological. They don't seem like, it seems like the halacha is really clear, and so the mafarshim are trying to make the halacha fit into current sociological circumstances, and that's how things were in most of the world in the Middle Ages, but not now.
I would think that that's fair. Yeah. I still think there are probably lots of households where the husband lights and the woman doesn't light.
Yeah.
And that's a holdover from all these sources that we're seeing. But again, Rabbi Soloveitchik is not convinced that they do a good enough job to justify that. And that's why in his household, the women lit as well. Same for Rav Lichtenstein. Yeah.
Rabbi,
Thank
can I challenge your Shabbat process when you leave the house and say, why don't you light 2 Shabbat candles as tea lights and leave them in the sink?
That's a good question. My view is you fulfill the mitzvah 100% with electric lights. You don't. I'm not sure if I could say the same thing on Hanukkah. So that's why we always went with electric lights. But yeah, it's a good point. Fair point.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
This is great. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you for
Yasher koach.
joining. I hope to see you soon. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for coming on.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.